The All Dress Podcast with Conor McKenna, Eric Macramella, and Shaun Starr starts now.
Sometimes if you could hear the conversations that we have right before the podcast starts, things got very dark and political a moment ago. And I realized I don't really know who Eric Macramella would support in a national election. I'm not really sure about that.
I prefer my leaders to be intelligent and have an IQ over 65. So I think it's abundantly clear who I would support. But I won't name names because I don't want to get in trouble. I live in our nation's capital. It's really far too close to home.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It is. I find it so interesting when it comes to Canadian politics. And let's see if I can sort of phrase this in a way that's, I guess what I sort of feel is that most people tend to vote for the one that they hate the least. I don't find that there is a ton of passion for the leaders of the various parties at this point. It's kind of an interesting thing.
You think that's more inclined to municipal politics than federal? Because when you said that, my gut was like, okay, I voted that way for like in municipal politics. I'm not going to lie. I've kind of voted that way a little bit. But I'm trying to think about voting history, and
I don't know.
I don't know. Do you think there's a difference?
I do. I think Conor's right, because when I have voted the past couple elections, I voted for the party or the leader that I didn't dislike the most, and I would opt for that one. And there's not a lot of selection. That's the issue. It's not attracting bright, intelligent stars like the incumbent's father, for example.
It's better than having only two choices, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, it's funny because I'm very intrigued. I have no idea who it is that you're talking about.
The only thing I'll say to that is that it's only two choices, but there's so many candidates that they can pick from when they elect the leader of a party. And with us, it seems like it's pretty bare. It just also seems kind of like Degrassi type of infighting. It's just the whole thing is unattractive.
And then there's that one guy who got naked in the parliament there a couple months back, and then he took it on a Zoom call more recently. It's like, dude. But it's funny because I know who Eric didn't vote for. I'm pretty clear on that. Yes. But other than that, I don't know what he's talking about. All right. So, guys, let's talk a little bit about it. The Canadians are in the third round. First of all, do we have a consensus here? Are we calling it the conference finals, the Stanley Cup Semi-Final, or semifinals, or just the third round? What's the nomenclature?
I think for me it's the semis, just because the NHL has said that they're not going to call it a conference final. There'll be no award of the conference final trophy, whatever, for each of the conferences. So we call it the semis, but in my heart, Shaun, it's the conference final.
Well, I know they're handing out like the Prince of Wales trophy and the Clarence Campbell trophy. They're handing out the trophies. But like you, I can't. They're playing Vegas. They're not in the Eastern Conference. It's not the conference finals. So I'm going to go Stanley Cup Semi-Final with a sprinkle of semis, but officially Stanley Cup Semi-Final.
Yeah, I think third round is what I've been going with. And I do still feel like I'm probably going to fall back on conference finals just because it's like muscle memory for so long. But
it does sound better. It sounds better.
Well, it feels better too, because as Habs fans, how long has it been?
If I told you 6 months ago, honestly, guys, if I told you 1 month ago, the Montreal Canadiens are going to be playing a third round playoff series in the middle of June against the Vegas Golden Knights in front of a packed house there and thousands of fans in Montreal, you would have told me I was crazy.
If you had told that to me after Game 4 against the Leafs, I would say, Conor, stop dropping acid. You're clearly not paying attention.
What's going on?
is on the decline. That was a terrible game. So look, this is house money, Shaun and Conor. It's house 100%. Money. I'm having 100%. Literally for Game 5. I went on Twitter. I said, look, my goal moving forward is just to enjoy the hockey we have left as Habs fans this season. And that's when it all turned around. So what I'm saying is the Canadiens are winning, Shaun, because of me.
And I'll tell you, even like have bandwagon fans annoy the hell out of me. And I find this year I don't even care. Like, I'm happy we're talking about hockey. I'm happy we're talking and feeling good vibes, car flags all over the place. And we're not talking about stupid COVID and stupid lockdown and stupid restrictions and everything else stupid related to the pandemic. We're talking about, like a real feel good story. House money. I think Eric is the perfect way to put this. And totally. And Connor's like just getting by being vague about the details. I mean, look who's playing well. Look at the PK. Look at the 7-0 run. Look who they beat. I mean, it's a great time to be a Canadiens fan. Everyone should be happy about where they are.
Yeah, but I think also you can't help but now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not going to be like, if they lose in 4 games, I'm going to be very disappointed if that's how it goes down. I mean, expectations are what they are. They've changed, right? I'm not going to say it was a terrible season or anything like that, but what I now want, my new expectation, and it changes all the time, but my latest and current one, I want them to compete. I want them to look like they belong in this series. That's what I want to see. As far as winning and losing, winning would be really cool. Losing is totally fine as well. But if they compete, it was like, you know what? This is what I said after Game 4. Remember, I talked about Game 4 against the Leafs. Like, what do you guys want to see? Whatever happens the rest of the way.
Yeah,
I want to see now. I want to see them compete. I want to see them engaged, and I'd love to see them give Vegas at the very least a run for their money.
Oh, and I think it's honest, reasonable expectations, Eric. And I know that compared to other runs, you talk about 2010, for example, and what happened when they got to a conference final and who they beat and how they beat them. This feels totally different. Like, this feels like very legitimate. It seems very consistent. It doesn't seem fluky. It doesn't seem to be like, oh, they're riding the coattails of this one specific area of the team. There's a lot more to believe in. There's a lot more logical reason to level your expectations going into the Vegas series, to expect a legitimate fight against a team that everyone's expecting to win.
I have, my expectations. I have expectations and I have hope, and my hope is somewhat tempered by my expectations. That being said, I think the Canadiens will compete in this series. My hope is they win, but as long as they put forward a good effort against a team that is similar to the Canadiens insofar as roster construction goes, but just better, slightly superior, on D and with their forward lines. They're playing a team that led the league in wins. They were tied for first in points, best goal differential during the regular season. So they're playing a really good team. My hope is they win the series. My expectation is they compete.
Marc Bergevin spoke today. We are recording this on Saturday. It's Saturday afternoon. It is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous in Montreal. I love talking about the weather, and I think this is evidence that I am ready to become a father finally, because I can spend a lot of time doing this. This is as far as Montreal weather goes, and I think we're 27 clear, no humidex right now. Maybe. I mean, this is the creme de la creme of Montreal weather days. So I kind of appreciate this too. I overheard a couple of guys at the dog park talking about it and sort of saying, I wish there was a hockey game tonight, but also it's a beautiful day. It's going to be a beautiful night. And I'm kind of excited that I can have a Saturday night, maybe go out for dinner. It's like, it's a little bit of a calm before the storm. I think I'm there. I'm happy that it starts on Monday night, but I'm also happy that we get a weekend of, doing whatever we want.
I'd like to have both, to be honest with you. I'd love to go out for dinner and come home to a hockey game tonight. Like, go out for dinner, come home to a 9:30 puck drop. Yeah. I could go for that. I'll settle for game 1 and going out for dinner tonight and coming home to no hockey.
Now, I'll say the only thing that's disappointing about this matchup, it's not the actual matchup. It's not the Habs playing Vegas. It's the time of the games, 8 and 9 o'clock. So it means my kids won't be able to watch. I think not even the first period, because they'll be past their bedtime. So that's the only part that's unfortunate. Really, really sad, actually.
I agree.
Would you bypass the bedtime if the Canadiens beat Vegas, Eric?
Yes. If the Canadiens make it to the Cup final, I'll have to divorce Emily because she's militant on sleep. And then I'll be able to watch every other game with the Canadiens live. I think that's how the custody arrangement is going to work.
Right.
Yeah. It's worth it.
Go Habs, go.
It's worth it.
Yes,
it's worth it.
For the kids to just be like, what if they're just total train wrecks for days afterwards, and they're just sobbing messes who don't know what's up and what's down? Is it worth it? I don't know. I'm very genuinely.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. You're going to have a kid, and to me, one issue parents have is captured nicely by the balance bike. Instead of getting kids a bike with training wheels, they get them a balance bike, because that eases the transition to a bike with just 2 wheels. So parents do that. Kids are slightly out of control on the balance bike, but kids also love to pedal and pedal fast. And they can only do that on a bike with training wheels. And so my approach is, look, the future matters, but the present also matters. I want my kids at times not to focus on the end game, but focus on the moment. So this series to me, it's not a balance bike. It's a bike with training wheels.
Wow.
Okay.
Why is the hood clap?
I mean, I think I'm ready to have a second kid now.
Today,
right.
I took my youngest boy, I took him to this sports store. They're having a liquidation. Like baseball cleats are like $100. They're selling for $23. They have all the top end. They have all the sports equipment. We were there for 2 hours. It was an absolute blast. We bought baseball pants because season's starting, cleats, batting gloves, Raptors hat. I mean, I'm telling you, having kids at times, some parents, I understand the stresses, but it's a blast. It's a blast.
At times. You hear that, everybody? At times.
I say it at times because it's not everybody who feels that way. So it's probably a poor choice of words. I just want my kids to like me, so it's always fun.
Right. Here you go, kids. Here's everything.
All right. So
it's pretty much it.
Right.
Marc Bergevin spoke today on this beautiful day ahead of the start of the round 3 of the playoffs. That's what the Canadiens' official Twitter account called it, round 3 of the playoffs. And he says there's a lot of enthusiasm in the city. We mustn't forget that we're only halfway there. There's still a lot of work ahead. I like that. I must say that Marc Bergevin's enthusiasm, his red suit, which we have discussed a great deal here on this podcast already, all of it I find to be very fun and somewhat contagious. I'm very here for this story. And I love that he's saying that. Their goal here is to win the Stanley Cup, but you can see how excited he is. You can see how happy he is. And I must say, as somebody who has struck a sort of an unsympathetic figure to me at times over the last couple of years, I think he's generated a whole lot of goodwill, whether it's the suit, whether it's just the excitement, and showing a little bit of a human side that maybe we hadn't seen for a while. So I've liked that a lot. Other than that, nothing super notable about what Marc Bergevin said today that I think we really need to dive into. It's not like we went out and called anybody out. We know that the injured guys are making the trip. What that means is Jeff Petry's making the trip, John Merrill is making the trip, and Jake Evans making the trip as well, which is cool. They are going to need guys, Jeff Petry, if they want to do the thing that I was just saying, right? If they want to give Vegas a run, if they want to be competing, they are going to need Jeff Petry at something resembling full form.
100%. And, to go back to something Eric had mentioned already when he talked about the type of team that Vegas is, there's some similarities there, like Vegas's PK unit versus Montreal's PK unit in the playoffs, and how good both of those special teams have been 5-on-5. The depth of Vegas. Joel Edmondson is someone that comes to mind when you mention Jeff Petry's name. What happens there with that defensive pairing? Does Joel Edmondson not look as bright as he did in the previous 2 series because maybe Jeff Petry isn't there early on, right? So it's this kind of fallback effect. And I think when we look at this series, and we know how dangerous Vegas is, even though they were the underdogs. Let's remember, they pulled off an upset when they knocked off Colorado in 6 games. The odds makers saw it going the other way, and Vegas overcame that. So when we look at how Montreal can maybe be competitive, to go back to something you guys talked about earlier, it's as good as everyone's been, Eric. I think you're going to need a little bit more from everybody if they are going to be what you guys want them to be, and that's competitive and make this a tough series.
First thing, Bergevin's suit, initially, the first time he wore it was panned by people. I said on my show, I loved it because it was daring. It was audacious. It was a beautiful suit, and it was very Montreal. That suit has now become a symbol. It's become a symbol so tightly connected to the Canadiens. And I think it evokes a lot of positive feelings in people. When they talk about the suit, they associate the Canadiens' success with that suit. Insofar as, overall looking at the matchup, Shaun, I do agree the Canadiens are going to need to do a little bit more than they did against the Jets, who are not a great team. I mean, let's be clear about what we saw. Jets suffered a lot of defensive breakdowns. They were effectively dominated by the Canadiens, particularly in that last game, 41-16 on shots. Canadiens decor can make things tough and painful, but Vegas has got guys that can score from a little farther out. And so, and the Vegas D can also be punishing as well. And they transition nicely. So this is not an easy matchup for the Canadians, but look, they beat the Leafs, Connor. So why can't they beat Vegas? It's possible.
Yeah. Why the hell not? Look, something's happening here. And it would be ridiculous to write this team off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have to.
It's if at this point you can't at the very least admit that there's something here. Were Winnipeg terrible? Yes, 100%. That was a horrifying performance by the Winnipeg Jets. I won't deny it. But they still swept them. Not an easy thing to do. What they did against Toronto, rattling off 7 wins in a row. They haven't trailed the whole time. Guys, these are the sort of things that happen when you're talking about magical runs in the playoffs. And maybe it comes to an end at some point. Maybe it doesn't. We don't know. And that's the glory of it. This is the sort of thing when people say, Shaun started saying this during the first round, or I guess it was after the first round. It feels a bit like 93. It does. Yeah. At least what I imagined that felt like. I was 10 years old. So I don't know. I don't know how much I really remember, but you look back on it now and it's got this mythical quality about it. 7 straight wins in the playoffs, 7 games without trailing for a minute. Exactly. That is crazy. It's totally nuts. And the Montreal Canadiens with the ghosts and the history and all that stuff. Bob Gainey's coming in and giving these guys pep talks, and who knows who else is doing stuff like that. Look, do I think they're going to win the Stanley Cup? No. But can I dismiss it out of hand? I said in the first round I thought they had a 0% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. That is no longer true. And that is a testament to everybody in that room, a testament to the guy who built the team, a testament to Dominic Ducharme and the great run he's had. This is what it's all about. It's what being a sports fan is all about.
Yep. And the team's going to come out supercharged. They're going to come out supercharged, right? I mean, they're on a 7-0 heater. Marc Bergevin was firing guys to save his own behind, and now he's found this like a company that was going down and then just got rescued. And now he's the CEO of this company that stock is going absolutely through the roof to the moon, and he's riding this wave. Carey Price is 7-0. He's rocking a 164 over that unbeaten streak with a 943 save percentage, right? I mean, it's crazy how dominant he's been. And then what I like about this, I think what inspires confidence going into this series and why this team I think is going to skate through a brick wall in game 1 is that when they score first, which they often do and completely dominated Winnipeg in that category. I think Dom Lucian in The Athletic called them an analytics juggernaut in the analytics era in that 4-game series sweep. And they score first and they don't stop. Like they don't sit back anymore, dump a chase, counterattack. Like they just come at you and they keep going and they keep going. And then there's the whole Caulfield second line, which I think will be a better matchup for the Canadiens in this Vegas series with how dangerous Suzuki and Caulfield have looked consistently since they were put together in the Toronto series.
It's funny you mentioned Caulfield on the second line because we are so conditioned now that the first line is Gallagher, Deneau, and whoever's on the left wing, right? And then you have those 4 lines in sequence, but really the Habs top line is Suzuki. The second line is the Stahl line right now. The third line is the Kotkaniemi line. The fourth line is the Gallagher line at this point in time, right? That's how they actually sort out. I think I'll say is that a lot does turn on Carey Price, but it's not necessarily the manner in which he plays these games. That's obviously important. Just a lot of high danger chances have been incredibly effective. It's how he acted at the end of game 4. When the Canadiens won, he was like, yeah, okay, we won. Big deal. I have to go to the grocery store. I've got to pick up 4 things for Angela. If he can continue to channel that level of calm and sharpen focus of this team, the Canadiens do have a shot. And it would be, Connor, absurd to declare the Canadiens have no chance. They are in the conference final, and they are there for a reason.
Sure.
And they came back and they beat the Leafs. And yeah, the Jets were terrible, but as you said, they swept them. That's not easy to do at this level. The Canadiens have the tools. Yeah, they're facing a team that looks like them, but just a little bit taller, a little bit better looking, and slightly better hair. The teams look similar, but the Canadiens can do it.
Let's take a look at the various matchups from our perspective. All right, I want to start in goal. Marc-Andre Fleury, what a great career he's had. I've got a lot of respect and love for Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, I remember, right, this is one of these guys, and I love this as I've gotten older, guys that, you were aware of before they got drafted, and then you got to watch their whole career and the way it went for him, and the way he lost his job in Pittsburgh, and the way that he was treated at times in Pittsburgh, and the mental hurdles that he overcame. And now here he is once again with, I mean, what a great story. I hate that it would be at the expense of the Canadians, but what a great story it would be if he could win again. Vezina caliber season from him. And then you got Carey Price. You just went through the numbers. The best goalie in the playoffs, I think we can say. I mean, I don't want to speak out of class, but certainly over the last stretch, who has the edge in goal in what looks like a 5-star goaltending matchup? Eric, who's got the edge?
I'd say in this particular series, I believe Carey Price has the edge. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Habs fan. Fleury is incredibly athletic goaltender. And I think he must do yoga 12 hours a day, because sometimes his legs are behind his ears. The guy looks incredibly flexible. And he's had a Vezina quality season without about at the age of 36 is astonishing. I think the issue here, though, is the Canadians forwards are relentless when it comes to attacking the net. And a guy like Gallagher may benefit from Fleury's clear weakness, rebound control. And they may be able to get to him on second and third chances. So I give the edge to Carey Price, who is far more composed. Shaun?
Yeah, I give it to Carey Price too. It's a close one though. But just seeing how dominant he's been and how responsible he was for helping his team eliminate Toronto in that come from behind first round series win. This guy's oozing confidence. I think Sean Burke deserves a ton of credit. This goalie whisperer comes in, Carey Price gets healthy, and now he's rock solid. To your point, I mean, this guy's always cool, calm, and composed. Even when he gave up a weak sauce goal in Game 4 against Winnipeg, he had every right to smash the stick into smithereens on the crossbar, but he didn't. You knew it was just a bad goal. Like a good golfer, put it behind you, move forward with your life. Life goes on, and he's been just that. And I think he's easy to follow in a situation like that. It's why he's universally praised by his teammates. They follow his lead, and for him to behave that way, to look that way, and to play so consistently shut down hockey, it inspires the guys in front of him. So I think he has that edge over Marc-Andre Fleury because, look at the defenseman in front of him, right? I mean, these guys do a lot of heavy lifting for Marc-Andre in Vegas.
Yeah, I'll give them the edge. I think it's virtually a coin toss, though.
Yeah.
And Fleury, what I love about Fleury, and when I talk about the progression as a goalie, I think about that goal. We've all seen the replay of that goal. Puck's coming in this way, blocker side, and he reaches over with his glove for some reason and tries to save it, and it goes in. Earlier in his career, that is something that rattles him, and he probably can't bounce back. Old veteran Marc-Andre Fleury laughed it off, smiling behind his mask, and went and took them where they needed to get. I thought that was great. And also, let's not forget, right? There was the whole Leonard thing last year with the Alan Walsh sword in the back Photoshop. Even this year, right? They went to Leonard again in Game 1. He got lit up last round. And anyway, everything's fine now.
Conor, I want to ask you a question, actually. Is there anything to make here about the fact that Fleury is from Sorel, Quebec, a French-Canadian goaltender? Could that work against him? Could that add any level of pressure that wouldn't otherwise be there, do you think? Or is this a complete, no, this is completely irrelevant?
I think at this, Eric, my personal opinion, at this point in his career, no. 10 years ago, maybe. But he's been through it, right? He was the guy in goal when the Canadians beat the Penguins in 2010. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's still there.
All right. Defense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll go first. I think I got to give the edge to Vegas, and a lot of it swings on Jeff Petrie, and maybe I'm not giving the respect to the Big Four, the Canadians' Big Four, that they deserve. But I think I look at Vegas's group as guys that they're willing to lean on. I mean, even Holden and White Cloud, that's their third pair, play a pretty more significant role on that team than the Canadians' third pair has, as much as Gustafsson has looked good. And I mean, Kulak, whatever it's going to be. But Pietrangelo, Martinez was great in the last round. Shea Theodore is real good. Braden McNabb's solid. That hit was unbelievable that he laid out there in Game 6. I got to give the edge to Vegas on the blue line. Shaun?
Yeah, I think that one's not as close as we all agreed. The goaltending comps were, Marc-Andre versus Carey. As I said earlier, I think Joel Edmondson doesn't shine as bright with Jeff Petrie out. I was always worried about Ben Sherratt. I didn't think he looked particularly good. I think I was in the minority there. I kept seeing people on Twitter talk about how great Ben Sherratt was. I thought he was just almost had Chuck syndrome at times against the Jets. I mean, I know he hits the hurt, which is fun to watch, but defensively, it's I don't know, white knuckle driving, it's tense times out there. And I mean, Shea Weber to go the rest of the way. I don't think it's a close race, Eric. I think right now, you mentioned earlier in the podcast here that Vegas can score. They have a strong ability to score from distance, and that's because of those big three that can bury the puck. So I don't think the Canadians can threaten the way Vegas can, especially from the blue line.
I don't know if there's an argument to be made that the Canadians D-core as a whole is better than the Vegas D-core. I think based upon the personnel the Knights have, they have a better defensive core. What I'll qualify that statement with the following. The Canadians D-core was successful against the Leafs and the Jets because they had the support of their forwards. How often does Suzuki come back and help? Often did Danault come back and help? So that team has to play as a unit if they are going to be successful. But you look at the Knights defensive core, you've got Martinez, Pietrangelo, and Whitecloud that are the top 5 for block shots in the postseason. Pietrangelo is an absolute stud. We know that. Theodore is a tremendous defenseman. So they have far more talent. They're quicker than the Canadians D. And the criticism of Canadians D all season long has been what? They're not sufficiently agile. They're not sufficiently nimble. And so we're going to see how this will look against a Vegas team that can roll 4 lines out there with speed and scoring ability. I mean, my goodness, they have a guy like Alex Tuck who plays on the 3rd line. So overall, Canadians D is not as strong. So for the D to be successful, Connor, they need the support of their forwards.
And remember, you're talking about the forwards for the Canadians coming back to help Carey Price. Carey Price was a beast against Toronto. In Dom Lucian's piece in The Athletic, he talked about the 60% expected goal rate Austin Matthews had. I mean, that's, who's responsible for the .957 save percentage? That's not Phil Deneau's doing. That's on Carey Price, and now they got Mark Stone to contend with, right? So I think when we talk about as solid as these guys have performed consistently at that level, and they're supercharged going into the 3rd round of the playoffs, they're going to need to be marginally better than what we've seen, right, Connor? I mean, if Carey Price is 943, maybe it's 951 that's going to be required to beat Vegas.
That's
right?
A tough ask.
That's a big ask.
And if that's what it's going to come down to, then I think we might end up disappointed here.
They're going to have to win some close games, right? Like a la Toronto, a couple of heroes are going to have to come out of nowhere and, I'm not going to say fluke it out, but close, tight game, get a bounce, have a timely possession, and then beat up Marc-Andre Fleury, right?
We think a lot about those last 3 games against Toronto, but you don't get to 7 without that game 1. Mm-hmm. So games like that, tight 2-1s, quick odd man rush, shorthanded goal against the run of play, that sort of thing for sure. Because even the analytics experts or whatever will tell you this, that once a playoff series comes around, 7 games sounds like a long time, but it's not. And it's going to go the way it's going to go. And one bounce here or there could change the entire thing. And they definitely have to hope for a little bit of that. All right, forwards. Shaun, that is your name.
It is. With a U, please. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Vegas, some powerful lines out there. I'm curious for your perspective on who's got the better forward group.
I think it's Vegas, and I think this is the best forward group Montreal has seen. When we look to Toronto and we look through Winnipeg, they're getting a team that's not maybe as talented as Toronto, but they got Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty who are going to be difficult to line up against. How Phil Deneau and Brendan Gallagher emerge out of that, clearly the advantage sides with Vegas. You move down the line, Riley Smith, William Karlsson. I don't think Ryan Reeves is a factor, but he always finds a way to get involved. I think the X factor here that I think gives Vegas a bit of a sweat. I'm going to go back to Suzuki and Caulfield. I'm going to go back to that with Tyler Toffoli. And the edge for the Canadians from the forward perspective is Eric Staal and Corey Perry. These guys are blistering hot right now. And Corey Perry's playing first wave power play time right now out there with Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, right? So you sprinkle them in with the man advantage. You have them out there in key 5-on-5 situations. A good fourth line presence with Eric Stahl. I think there's a slight advantage to the Canadians, but overall from the playmaking department, Eric, I hate to say it, but I think it's a landslide in favor of the Golden Knights.
Well, where have you heard this before? A hockey team can roll 4 lines, but they have no game breakers. No, it's not the Canadians. It's the Knights. Look at that team. Carlson leads that team in playoff points, and he's on to the top 10 in scoring in the NHL during the postseason. Again, very similar to the Canadians. They can run those 4 lines, and they can create havoc, and they create scoring chances. You have to give the edge to. I don't know. I kind of feel like it's a push here, because since Caulfield entered the lineup, that's not only have we seen how great he is and what a great passer he is, but it had sort of this cascading type of impact where Armia was dropped, to the right side of Perry and Stahl, where he should have been all along. And it's made that team better and more even. And when you watch them against the Jets and even against the Leafs, the second half of the series, Connor, the Montreal Canadiens were effective in all 4 lines. So while, Vegas has got a guy like Tuck on the third line, and they got Carlson, who was a great centerman. And that first line is a really scary line with Stone and Pacioretty. Canadians are no slouch either. This team can produce.
Yeah, I don't put it in a landslide, but I do like Vegas. It's very simple. Vegas, I give the edge on line 1 and line 2 in both cases, right? Those are real good lines, real good players. Mark Stone, one of the best players in the game. And those 3, the second line, which used to be their first, remember the first time they went to the Cup final, that was their first line, and it's now their second line. I like that line too. And Marchessault has been unbelievable. We'll see, but somebody's going to be a real thorn, and I got to give Vegas the edge there. I think I like the Canadians' bottom 6 more than I like Vegas's bottom 6. Basically, I like their third line better, and I like their fourth line better. But if I have to weigh those 2 things against one another, I'll take the team.
Yeah, and I
like more.
And just to take up the other side for a second, when you talk about the third and the fourth line, or Kotkaniemi and Josh Anderson, I mean, if you want to simplify it, I guess, can you put it on both of those players? Kotkaniemi had 1 point in the series against Winnipeg. Connor and I on Friday's show, and a couple of times, as a matter of fact, during the week. Josh Anderson, I think, in 3 of the 4 games against Winnipeg, had no shots on goal. We know he's tied. He's sitting on 1 goal in 11 playoff games. I mean, it's hard to look at, and I think maybe that's why I kind of went landslide. I'm kind of focused on what I just saw, still feeding off with what I just saw, and then the team still struggles to get a lot of goals. So I hate to simplify it down to that, but they're going to need it from Josh Anderson and Jesperi Kotkaniemi if we're going to go back to the beginning of the podcast, hoping for a competitive performance from the Canadians.
Shaun, Josh Anderson has not been effective offensively, no doubt about that.
Since game one.
Since game one, and one of his very few shifts. But defensemen hate playing against him, right? Because he hits you, and he hits you hard. And for the Canadians to be successful in this series, they need Josh Anderson to do what he does. Does he need to score? Yeah, that would be nice. It'd be nice if Caulfield scored too. But Anderson provides other benefits to this team and can help this team win. The one guy I think is going to have a really good series is a guy who was so in the Leaf series and played well against the Jets, and that's Suzuki. This is the team that traded him away. I think Suzuki loves the spotlight, and the conference finals / semifinals will provide Suzuki with that spotlight, plus the added incentive to play well against the team that drafted him. I think this is his series, guys.
All I'm saying is if we're talking about close games and the Canadians, come out on the losing end of these 2-1 games and ultimately lose the series, people are going to be wondering about the guy you're paying $39 million to, and he had 1 goal in the playoffs, right? I mean, you're paid to be a power forward. You're paid to score. It's one thing to be tough to match up against. You got to overcome and come through. The bell's ringing. Time to answer it. Let's go.
Shots fired.
You know what, Shaun? One thing I'll say about you, I do love how Anderson plays, and I thought he was an impact player during the season. But there are these ebbs and flows. But not only that, when he plays, it's kind of like he's playing alone. Like every other player seems to pair up nicely with a winger or centerman. But I find, Connor, when I watch Anderson play, it's kind of just him. It's just him. He's a very north-south vertical type of player, and I don't see him as this sort of thoughtful player on the ice. Is that going too far? I don't know.
Sure. I mean, it's going too far. It's your opinion. You have every right to it. I'm not going to tell you don't. I think his best moments were with Suzuki, were they not, earlier in the season?
Yeah, and Kotkaniemi's been his most used centerman.
They are going to need those guys. The series could turn on that line, really. And you hope that Anderson can come out shot out of a cannon like he did after the long layoff before the Canadiens started the playoffs. And maybe this long layoff here is something that serves him well. But they're going to need him for sure. And this is why I don't have him in the Gallagher tier as the Canadiens' best forward. It's because of the lack of consistency overall. While I would agree that Anderson, when he's at his best, is unplayable, basically. The problem is he's not at that level as often as he is. Coaches. Okay, coaches. Peter DeBoer, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know who his assistant coaches are. I'm sure we'll learn. But Dominic Ducharme and his staff, who has the edge here? Two guys with a grand total of 0 Stanley Cup rings, if I'm not mistaken, right? DeBoer has been the coach of some good teams, but I don't believe he's gotten any of them to the promised land, whether it was the San Jose, right? He was the coach of the New Jersey Devils for a time, now here in Vegas, but no rings, right? I'm not
right.
exposing myself here.
No.
So who's got the coaching edge? I guess my gut is Vegas. Peter DeBoer is like a Jack Adams winner. He's a multiple nominee. He's been around for a long time. But Dominic Ducharme just made Sheldon Keefe look silly, and then he made Paul Maurice look silly in a 4-game series.
Between games 4 and 5, the Canadiens had a day off. I think that day off was so incredibly important to this team because they figure stuff out in practice. They've been working so long, and I think it finally coalesced and came together. But insofar as who has the edge in coaching, I would say, I'll tell you after the series, the team that wins had the edge in coaching. I mean, Ducharme, I'm getting used to him. He's kind of got this Dexter kind of feel to him with those eyes, very, very intense eyes. I'm used to it. I'm enjoying him. He seems to have made adjustments against the Leafs, adjustments against the Jets. But I don't know really who has the edge because I don't know. You're looking at two teams that are relatively good. Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
What team, if the Final Four, is the one nobody expected to be here? I'll tell you the answer. It's the Montreal Canadiens. Therefore, Dominic Ducharme has his team primed and motivated better than Pete DeBoer, even though they pulled off the upset to beat Colorado marginally.
But that wasn't enough.
They were down 3-1 against Toronto.
That was not an upset.
They weren't favored to win the series.
Yeah,
therefore, qualified legitimately as an upset.
The league. They had the most points.
Blah, 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 blah,
Colorado.
blah.
They had the most wins this season.
Vegas had them as an underdog. I win. Montreal came back from 3-1 against Toronto. Then they swept and closed out game 4. Come on. Joel Edmondson's quoting Dominic Ducharme, talking about how he's said to shine your shoes and get ready for the dance. I mean, these guys are glistening, absorbing like a sponge everything Dominic Ducharme is saying. Get out of here, Pete DeBoer. DeBoer. What kind of name is that anyway? Dominic Ducharme for the win.
I think it's Dutch.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Great. Perfect. I like it, Shaun. I like your passion.
Thank you.
I mean, Peter DeBoer has been to the Stanley Cup Final 3 times. And I don't know if this is with 3 different teams, right? Did he get there with the San Jose? And I think he was the coach of the Devils when they went.
That's what I thought. Right.
That one last run with Brodeur. This is the sort of thing one is supposed to research before going on the air. But it is Saturday and it is very nice outside. So I hope you'll pardon me. But speaking of it, and let's talk about experience. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about here, because I think you've got 2 different really interesting types of experience on these 2 rosters. You have the Stanley Cup experience that we've heard about that was brought in by Bergevin in Corey Perry, although that's a long time ago. Same thing with Eric Staal. They won Stanley Cups, but they were young players on teams that won 15 or so years ago. Then you've got Joel Edmondson with the recent Stanley Cup experience. Jake Allen, Stanley Cup experience as a backup goaltender. And Vegas, there's not a lot of rings on this team. I mean, by my count, you've got Alex Pietrangelo, and that's a big one. But other than that, I don't know if there is another Stanley Cup ring on this roster, but a lot of experience.
Lots of French guys.
A lot of recent experience, right? Mm-hmm. Winning rounds, getting to conference finals, getting to Stanley Cup finals. I give the edge in experience to Vegas, even though the edge in Stanley Cup rings goes to the Canadiens. How do you guys see it?
I give the edge to the Canadiens. You also mentioned Toffoli. So there's another Stanley Cup that Bergevin signed in the offseason. I think it matters. I think it matters at this latter stage during the playoffs. I think that experience can really help you in those moments where you feel as though, look, things aren't going your way. And I'm not convinced that a guy like Max Pacioretty, who's having a great season with 24 goals this season, 51 points, and he missed a whole bunch of games, in 5 or 6 games. I'm not convinced that a guy like him is going to be your answer to the playoffs, but I guess we'll see.
Ouch.
I think the Canadians do have that experience, and they're going to lean on it. And I think it's going to come in handy, Shaun.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, because I want to think that these guys, while they have it in the reservoir that they could go back and I guess take from what they went through, I also think what they went through in the first 2 rounds matters a hell of a lot, and it should make them confident, right? So like, I don't know if they need to. Maybe they can go back and ask a question, or not panic with the puck, or panic in a judgmental moment on the ice. But what they're doing is defying everybody. Like, who was it? Brendan Gallagher said, "We don't care. You know, we care about our family and our teammates, and outside of that, man, outside noise." So I think they're feeling pretty good right now.
Just because they say that doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so finally, gambling. First of all, the All Dress Podcast recommends that you stay within your means, and if gambling is a problem for you, then find help, and don't do it. Don't gamble. But if you can have some fun, if you want to have some fun and you've got a few bucks that you want to play, and that might make things a little more exciting for you, there's no fun to be had, Shaun, betting on Vegas in this series, is there?
I don't think so. When we look at the series price, Connor, Eric, it's minus 425 for the Golden Knights just to win the series, regardless of how many games they would do it in this scenario, which basically means if you just want to net $100, you have to risk 425 on the table. Going back to what you guys were talking about, at your own peril, bet against the Montreal Canadiens. Therefore, doesn't it make more sense?
425, you said?
Yeah.
Which is the going rate for half an hour of Counselor Macramella's time.
That's right. That's just to fill out the paperwork, sucker.
Half? I don't offer discounts, but go on.
Look how offended he is.
Yeah.
How dare you? That's the most egregious thing we've ever said to Eric Macramella. But I think, when it comes to what we talked about and referenced a few times, whether it's the 93 vibes, fellas, or whether it's this team feeling confident, the heater run they're on, who's playing well, why they're playing well, that you can get a great return on your small investment. And Connor's 100% right. If it's just, betting this series for a drink or supper or $5, who cares, whatever it is, adding a little flavor to the series can provide some entertainment. And you look at the Montreal Canadiens in a series victory, Eric, Connor, 6 in 6 or 7 games, you're getting almost 10-1, which means it's a lot more enjoyable of a ride, even though all the odds suggest it is Vegas to win. But the odds were heavily favored for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were heavily favored when they were up 3-1. Montreal was 22-1 to win in 7 games, and they did. So it's happening, folks. It's an opportunity. But again, the best advice that was given was at the beginning. Stay within your means, stay in your lane. Let's just have some fun.
I love it. It's an opportunity, spoken like a true bookie. I love it. An opportunity.
Yes, that's right.
Well done.
It's a beautiful day, boys and ladies and gentlemen at home. I hope you're enjoying a beautiful day, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or some other day. Maybe you're listening a week down the road, talking about how bad all of our analysis was and how wrong we all were across the board. If so, feel free to dunk on us on Twitter. Eric's on Twitter at Eric Macramella. I'm there at McKenna Conor. Sean's at Shaun Star 78.
You got it.
And is that because 1 through 77 was taken?
So the year of
I tried every single one.
Son of a. Our all dressed Fab Four this week. Fab Four backyard activities. As
I like this.
I'm getting
I like it a lot.
Redone. I can't wait to get out there and celebrate in the backyard. So I'm going to give you my top 4 right here. Okay.
Go.
Number 4. Listening to music. I like. I don't have the baller setup. I don't know if you have it, Eric. I don't know how into music you are even actually, but with like when you have those really nice speakers that people can get in their backyards when it's like a real nice surround sound. I love that. Don't have that. Maybe I will someday. But still, bring out the Bose portable speaker and just listen to some tunes. Love that.
You didn't know Macramella has Led Zeppelin on retainer. Jimmy Page over here.
Every Saturday, someone comes in my backyard and performs for us.
Hey,
usually someone from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
He had John Bonham cryogenically unfrozen and cloned to perform for him. Number 3, sitting with friends.
Yeah,
having a sit with friends in the backyard, having a schmooze, maybe a drink or two, a nice meal. Number 2 is working the grill. Also fun when there's friends around and hopefully close enough that I'm at the barbecue, I'm doing a good job. And if your barbecue game is on point, everybody tells you what a great job you did. Who doesn't love that feeling of being the grill skills hero? And number 1, obviously, you guys, slip and slide. Number 1, backyard slip and slide.
You do slip and slide.
I think it's so dangerous.
Do you wear a thong?
No. Okay. I do it as God intended. I slip and slide naked.
Oh, beautiful!
Wow,
beautiful.
You know what? I can tell you.
Is that a shave down situation? Did I just cross the line?
Well, you're faster. You're faster if you're shaving.
I'm the one.
Absolutely.
I'm the one across the line.
Slip and slide is about speed.
My grandfather, when he was not a healthy man, and probably in his mid 70s. But he was a very active young guy. He was a great swimmer, a great diver. And I remember sort of some traumatic experiences of seeing my grandfather sort of forget that he was an unhealthy 75-year-old man and decide to do things. Get on the slip and slide in the backyard at 162 Cresswell out in Beaconsfield. And man, did he ruin his back, I believe, for the rest of his life on just one ride down the slip and slide. So be careful.
Right. PSA. Thank you, Conor.
Shaun?
All right. Yeah, I'll go next. All right. Number 4, I do this. I love this. Been doing this for the last 10 years. I love creating a snow maze in my backyard for my dog, Leon. I create little dead ends. I create little tunnels. He has a bunch of different paths to navigate during the winter months. So that's an annual tradition. Look, he's looking at me smiling, thinking of the good old days. Like Conor, number 3 is chilling with buddies, kibitzing outside in the backyard, cocktail always in hand. And then there's number 2, which I do enjoy. And I think once this podcast is over, because my lovely is out shopping, spending money, one of her favorite things to do, I'm going to sit alone outside and just chill, take in the sun, just be quiet by myself. And then my ultimate favorite thing to do in my backyard is, again, with my dog, Leon. He sits there like a trained dog that he is. I have a little small bag filled with tennis balls, and I use my 60-degree wedge, and I just chip balls down, and he catches them in his mouth, spits them down. I go collect them, and we repeat the process. So that's my favorite thing to do in my backyard.
A lot of it involves your dog. That first one about like creating mazes, that sounds like an experiment. It doesn't sound like a pastime. It sounds like you're torturing your dog taking notes, but
oh, he loves it. Don't sit there judging me.
I'm just glad Shaun didn't make any references to outdoor public sex, anything like that.
No, how dare you, heathen? What do you think I am?
You know, and if I can't judge you on this podcast, then what's the point of the podcast? All right, my top 4. Number 4 is being in my backyard, having a cigar. And cigars for me are season sort of contingent. When it warms up, I have a lot of cigars. I think I've had one every day for the past 4 or 5 weeks, which means related story, I'm going to die soon. But I've got some Monte Cristo 2s, some beautiful Cuban cigars. And there's just something about smoking a cigar when you're alone in the backyard, especially when you have 2 young kids and a wife who really, gives you PowerPoint presentations on how to organize a dishwasher. That moment is an important moment to yourself, and I really, really like that. Number 3 is my neighbor behind us has trees that grow onto our property that kind of extend over. My favorite thing is just cutting them down without asking him. I love that.
Yeah, I love that
the whole time. Number 2 is watching hockey in my backyard. So I've been watching all the Habs games with a friend or 2 in my backyard. I've got Bell 5. It makes it so easy. TVs now are super light, and we're out there. And I love watching hockey outside when it's warm. It's beautiful. And number 1 is playing with my boys in the backyard. They're hockey or tossing. It's not a big backyard. I put on the goalie pads, or my son puts on his goalie pads, street hockey pads, and we all 3 of us play. And is to say it's as my kids say, it's not fun. It's too much fun. And so that's
awesome.
number 1 on my list.
Nice. I like that. It's a good quote. Put that on your Twitter bio.
I'm in this project in my backyard. We had this tree that we were getting rid of, and we have all these neighbors. It's like kind of a courtyard with like 6 different houses. and we have sort of the biggest yard in the middle. And I just unilaterally cut down this tree that was, on my property, but still it affected everybody. And I wasn't sure. And the reaction has been like universally like, thank you.
Oh, wow.
This one woman was like, Madame, she's talking to my girlfriend, Madame, c'est magnifique. Merci. It was like, wow. Nice.
Oh, wow. Good thing it didn't go the other way. Holy.
Yeah, exactly. No,
well done. Yeah. Awesome.
Well done. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back, I guess, right after game one. We'll keep the formula up. We'll try to get one up as early as we can the day after every game throughout the course of this series. Enjoy, have fun, enjoy this beautiful day, your families, and don't stop rocking.
Love you.
Peace.